Being a sickly child in the family of a martial arts master meant living like a criminal for the rest of her life. The girl ran up to her sister with tears in her eyes, watching her getting worse and worse. The girl assured her sister that everything was fine and asked her to get out of here. Such was the not particularly long life of the protagonist. While she was fighting her illness, her younger brother was going his own way. Everyone realized that perhaps the young mistress would be leaving them soon, and everyone felt sorry for the firstborn who was to lead the family. The protagonist realized that no one harbored hopes on her account. And even when that very day came, there was an attack from the Blood Valley. Everyone believed, defended, and fought back. People were looking for the young master because he had to protect his sister. The protagonist at this time lay motionless because she was not even able to get up. The girl perfectly felt that her death was near. She felt pain, as if her body was pierced by thousands of needles, also the suffering of her family. The girl realized that finally it was all behind her. But just when she thought the end had really come, she woke up in her room and didn't realize what had happened. The protagonist did not understand how she managed to survive. Moreover, she was very much surprised when she noticed that she was in her childish body. The girl did not understand. Is it possible that she really did not die? The protagonist suggested that it could have been just a long dream. But at the same time, she was clearly sure that she had died. The girl noticed that the pain that had tormented her all her life was gone, and then she was ready to fall into eternal sleep. But suddenly she was drawn to another place, and it was as if she was floating above the world like a wandering soul. Everything opened up to her, the universe, the past, and the future. She saw places that didn't exist or that she didn't know existed, and then everything became so simple and clear, and eventually she woke up. The girl realized why she had come back at that very moment, and then it dawned on her that it meant that she had returned to her childhood. The girl was brought out of her musings by the voice of a maid who entered the room and noticed that her mistress was awake. The girl told her mistress that she had brought her something tasty, and if she took her medicine, she could eat it later. The protagonist was surprised when she saw her nanny. Suddenly, the girl realized that this meant that she could once again meet the people she had missed. The protagonist asked her nanny if she could eat a treat and stay off her medication. In response, the woman asked her mistress not to say that, as she was still not feeling well. The protagonist realized that it was great that she could see her nanny again, but she would have to drink those nasty medications again. Eventually, the girl finished everything, and the nanny called her mistress a beautiful child. The woman supported her mistress, said she was doing great, and now gave her a treat. The protagonist realized that someone was calling it hyper-parenting. That said, she was very pleased to be taken care of. Eventually, she opened her eyes for the first time in 7 years. From birth, the main character was different from others. For 7 years, she was unable to laugh, cry, or even speak. For 7 years since birth, she lived in a body that was only a shell. Her family did everything they could to make her wake up. This is what was called mother's purification. It helps build the foundation of the dantian and strengthens the bones and muscles. A powerful technique that normally helps prepare the body for learning a martial art, and an opportunity that was resorted to out of desperation, worked. The girl wondered if the spell was powerful enough to perform her mother's purification ritual at home. After all, there was something she wanted to check first. The protagonist informed the nanny that she wanted to take a little walk, just to the garden. The nanny embraced her mistress and said that of course it was possible, but only after the mistress had had a good rest. The girl did not know what to do because she wanted to walk just now. Later, the protagonist lay in her bed, was happy that she was finally alone. The girl decided that she needed to make sure that no one was around, after which she climbed out of her bed. For while her soul was floating in the heavens after her death, she saw and learned many things. The protagonist realized that to know something was to understand it, and to understand it meant that she could try again. For after all, she had seen the entire universe. The protagonist realized that she might not be able to understand everything she saw, but if she used an ability with which she could read, she could learn a lot. In front of the girl, the username Dunmok Riwan's user verification popped up. She was then warned that the viewing mode would be adjusted for her convenience, and she would be displayed all the available information. It also said that the information would be provided in a simple manner for better understanding. After that, the girl began to read the scroll in front of her. The protagonist realized that she would be able to understand why she was sick. The girl could not help but rejoice, because she thought that for the sake of such a thing, it was worth dying and rising again. In the end, the scroll said that the changes were complete, and the heavenly vision was beginning to manifest. The protagonist was happy that she had succeeded. After that, the scroll had all the detailed information about her. But emotions of disappointment appeared on the girl's face, seeing that it was just some basic statistics. What caught the girl's attention was the health level column. She also realized that on top of everything else, she couldn't access her internal energy. Dunmok knew that internal energy was necessary to reach the realm of martial arts master, and she couldn't do any of that. The girl wondered how she could become a martial arts master in the future. Suddenly, the protagonist didn't notice that the scroll had written in it for her to keep her spiritual energy level below 50 points, and if her energy value was above that level for more than 2 months, it would lead to death. Dunmok knew that she wanted to survive first and foremost, which meant she had to lower her life energy level. Suddenly, the protagonist noticed that it also said that her infinite source of life energy was derived from a dark spell she hadn't fully learned, as well as a sickly flower. The girl didn't understand at all what it all meant. Dunmok thought about the infinite source of life energy, as well as the painful flower from the greenhouse, and seemed to begin to realize that the reason she died from her past life was because of the life energy she was emitting too much, and so her physical body just couldn't take it. The protagonist didn't know this in her past life, and she was told that they were able to find the cause of the young mistress's illness, so she just waited for her death. But the girl decided that now it will not be like that, because now she knows the cause of the disease and learns how to keep her health, so her family will no longer be overtaken by sadness. Her loved ones will no longer suffer. She promised herself that she would try to live a long and healthy life. Dunmok was determined that she would destroy everyone and everything that stood in her way of living a long and healthy life. So she decided to start with spiritual energy. Dunmok suggested that she could try to reduce her energy levels with a fan. She then opened the object and a blue glow poured out of it. The girl then saw her energy level move on the scroll. Her energy level decreased and her health increased. So the girl decided that she needed to purify the air in her room, and then she would get 100 purifications in one fell swoop. But suddenly, the protagonist on the contrary became worse, and she did not understand what was happening. The girl felt her head spinning, and then she saw that the scroll again wrote that her energy level had increased. Dunmok was upset because she thought she could lower her energy level if she used it actively. The girl was confused and began to think about how to lower her energy level. Dunmok began to ponder if there was any way she could use her energy efficiently. The girl looked out the window and saw the air in the neighborhood clearing. The girl passed other girls who were discussing the fact that one of them had used the energy to purify and the plants in the lake had bloomed. Dunmok tried it too, but after using a lot of energy, she ended up feeling sick. Eventually, her plan didn't work, and she realized how difficult it was to control her energy. Dunmok suggested that she should just learn a couple of medical techniques and become a trusted counselor. Suddenly, the protagonist's mom walked into the room saying she was home. Rion was overjoyed to see her mom, throwing her arms around her. Mom spun her daughter around and asked if she had already eaten sweet potatoes. Rion told her that her uncle had treated her and it was very tasty. The girl also suggested her mom to try it too. Suddenly, Rion noticed that there was other writing behind her mom, namely characterization. The mom asked her little girl to eat more. The mom also noticed that the healers were taking good care of her daughter. Rion read in the writing that her mom was worried about her daughter's health, happiness, and future. The nursemaid entered the conversation and drew attention to the fact that she had plucked flowers to decorate the room with. The mother said that it was jasmine, and she thought it would look beautiful in the room and exude a pleasant fragrance. The woman said that today she had watched everything in the garden bloom, and even the golden tree that had died, she thought, had bloomed. The mother plucked one flower and adorned her daughter's hair with it. Mother shared with her daughter that it seemed to her that nature was celebrating the awakening of Rion. Mother understood that Sung Ran would be happy to see her now. The girl noticed the look in her mother's eyes and realized that she was thinking about her father. The protagonist realized that if her dad also knew about her illness, he would do the same thing. Therefore, the protagonist promised her mother that she would now try to dispel all her worries. Rion took her mother's hands and promised that she would be fine now. The girl also said that she would like to show herself to her grandfather, after which she asked if she could go to him. The mother agreed and warned her daughter that she should thank her grandfather, for he had made an important decision for her. Rion wondered what he had decided. They then approached the house, and the mother addressed her grandfather, saying that Rion had come to thank him. Grandfather inquired how she was feeling. The Matushka then turned to the man and said that he was grateful that he had allowed her to perform the blood-sharing ritual, and they say that it was nothing short of a miracle that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the grandfather. The mother turned to her daughter and told her that she should be grateful. The girl was slightly surprised to learn that her grandfather had given her this precious elixir. After that, she thanked her grandfather for being able to heal herself, thanks to the medicine her grandfather had given her. That's why she decided to greet him, just still wondering if they could go inside and say hello. After which, the grandfather allowed the girl to enter. Rion remembered that in her past life she had been constantly sick and didn't remember ever meeting her grandfather. All she knew was that her grandfather had been the family's main secret, and then he had died quietly. The protagonist assumed something was wrong with him, but now, with the power she had gained, she would be able to find out more. Rion entered the room and looked at her grandfather. She also knew that this man was the true head of the Dunmok family, and the reason why their family couldn't achieve greatness was because they could only survive because of her grandfather, the best craftsman in the entire world. The grandfather turned to the child and asked her if she was really here to say hello. Rion realized that she had to do something about this power. Rion looked at her grandfather and then noticed that a scroll had appeared. It said that she now had access to view the qualities of items up to level 5, and a detailed description of her skills was available. The girl realized that just one look at her grandfather's face had increased her level of insight. Rion noticed that there were skill descriptions here that she hadn't seen before, and because of the increase in insight level to 3, additional characterization descriptions were available. And because of this, she would finally be able to see the quality of items up to level 5 that were previously unavailable. Rion looked at the scroll and noticed that her grandfather's characteristics were written there. The girl noticed that he hadn't reached level 12, and even though he had already achieved greatness, he didn't seem to be able to reach his potential anymore. The grandfather did not understand why the girl was silent. After all, she herself had come to greet him. Rion came to her senses and thanked the grandfather for the medicine. The man admitted that he just thought that if he couldn't use it himself, he would give it to her. However, he also asked that she not forget to tell her granddaughter how valuable it was. Rion couldn't help but agree. After all, this legendary elixir had indeed been stored for 10,000 years, an elixir that transformed earthly might into highly concentrated yang energy. Grandfather confessed that he only wanted his granddaughter to realize that she was the one on whom the entire family's hopes rested, and so she must work hard to live up to the responsibility placed upon her. Rion admitted that she understood, and promised her grandfather that she would work hard. In her mind, she asked her grandfather not to worry, for she would definitely justify the value of the elixir given to her. In order to take this elixir, you need extra energy to help you deal with it. A 1,000-year-old elixir with the energy of powerful yang needs an incredible neutral elixir to curb that energy. However, Rayon's power is different. It is pure internal energy that is not drawn to either yin or yang. Internal energy in large amounts, if the protagonist absorbs it at once, it harms her greatly. But over a period of time, this energy can slowly seep out if she has it with her, but it will purify the energy and allow her grandfather to absorb it. That way he would be able to live a long life. Rion decided that she could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The grandfather looked at his granddaughter and wondered why she was smiling like that. After that, he asked the girl to come closer. Rion shifted and moved closer to the grandfather. The grandfather told his granddaughter that she had sincerely come to greet him, and therefore he could not let her go empty-handed, so he asked her to take a small gift. Rion thanked her grandfather and realized that it seemed to be a very valuable item. Then she took a closer look and noticed that the Grand Master had been collecting internal energy for a long time, and the volume was up to the 14th level. Rion wondered what that meant. And then she read in the scroll that if she wanted to keep this item of internal energy, she needed to unseal the stone, and the higher the quality of the stone, the greater the amount of internal energy in it. Rion felt her internal energy diminishing. The girl realized that with this pendant, she would also be able to store and use her spiritual energy. Rion looked at the gift with interest, and then the grandfather asked her if she liked the gift. Rion admitted that she liked it very much. The grandfather then asked his granddaughter if she needed anything else, to which the girl gave an affirmative answer. The grandfather asked her to share it with him, because as the eldest daughter of this family, she should have the confidence to boldly declare her desires. So Rion boldly declared that she wanted to study martial arts. To both her mother and grandfather, this came as a real shock. Rion didn't expect such a reaction, because she thought they would be proud if their eldest daughter wanted to study martial arts. The mother asked her daughter if she really wanted to study martial arts, to which the girl answered in the affirmative and said that she was already 7 years old, but she didn't know anything at all. The mother asked Rion to think about the arts as she grows stronger. Rion noticed that tears started coming to her mother's eyes and asked her not to cry. The mother assured her daughter that she wasn't crying at all, just worried about her baby girl Rion. The girl decided that she would then study martial arts when she got better. The mother agreed to do just that. She was very proud that her daughter was already so obedient, so she asked to come up for a hug. The grandfather turned to his granddaughter and said that when the time came, he would personally take care of her education. In the meantime, she'd better take her time and focus on getting better. Rion promised that she would do just that. Later, the grandfather shared that the child began to walk very quickly. The man in the room also said that Dr. Hio shared that she still needed to be looked after, but he found no other abnormalities, which surprised him a lot. The man also added that it had been almost 8 years, and no one knew how hard the master had tried. The grandfather recalled how calm and direct his granddaughter says to him while looking at his face. The guy also added that Dr. Hio was amazed by her smartness. Grandpa got angry and decided to let someone think she was smart just because she was talking well, despite the fact that she only woke up a couple months ago. He didn't understand how she could be so sensible and calm. Grandfather figured they would decide his granddaughter's future as a martial artist given her condition. Until then, he trusted the man to make sure that talk of it didn't even come up here. The girls were discussing amongst themselves the rumors that it seemed that Madame Rion was dating the Lord. It was now clear to them why Volin had made such a fuss. The girls thought that it was indeed a true happiness that the young mistress had woken up, and so they decided that they too would perk up. The girls also assumed that the young master must have been suffering all this time. The boy turned around and heard the conversation between the two maidservants. The maids were in complete shock, not understanding what was going on here, having seen Mrs. Rion stirring grain for the chickens. The girl asked the maids if she was doing the right thing. The women answered in the affirmative, but they did not understand how it was that she had shifted her work to the lady. The woman had already resigned herself to the fact that she was finished. The other girl turned to the mistress and said that she didn't need to stoop to being a servant. Rion responded by saying that every occupation in this family has a noble purpose, and besides, these chickens are laying eggs that her grandfather will eat later, so she wants to take care of him. When the maids heard the young lady's words, they almost cried. They also advised the young mistress to add some perilla seed cake, and then it would be enough. Rion turned to the maids and asked if it would be enough, to which the girls gave positive answers and asked her not to overwork herself too much. Rion turned to the chickens, realizing that they had waited a long time, and now she would feed them. Suddenly, an all-black rooster caught the girls' attention. A rooster with dark velvet plumage and a crest to the tips of its claws that was completely black. The maid told the mistress that it was very tasty, or rather the healthiest. Rion was surprised to hear this, and decided that she should call him Blackie then. The maids realized that giving names did not seem to be their mistress's strongest suit. The girl suggested that the young mistress name the rooster Higwal, since he was all dark. The girl agreed, since that name would suit him better. The maid then told the young mistress that she could put grain in that feeder. The girl also added that since they had been well fed since morning, it was possible that they might not want to eat now. But as soon as the food went into the feeder, the chickens swooped down like locusts and devoured everything. Rion noticed that these guys seemed to be very hungry. Rion had also heard that the maid had said that she fed them around the hour of the hare, so she decided that she would do the same. The maid had already mentally pictured her grandfather getting angry at her for daring to smear his granddaughter's hands with bird food and then kicking her out. The girl turned to the young mistress and asked if she was sure she was allowed to do that. Rion thought a lot about how spiritual energy could be effectively distributed, and came to the conclusion that she needed to purify the energy as much as she could and transmit it. As her energy would be absorbed through this method, her health would improve. In this sense, stocking up on poultry feed was ideal. The girl also realized that it was beneficial to use spiritual energy in kneading grain, and even better if her grandfather would eat the chicken afterwards and become stronger. Rion thought about the fact that even if they grow well, it's still overkill. The maid approached the mistress and wondered if she liked Higwal that much. The maid also noticed that the mistress also liked the chickens. It was not surprising to the girl, for she had fed them for life. The maid suggested to the young mistress that after she fed them, would she like to visit the Shadow Moon clan. Rion agreed and decided she would do just that. The girl couldn't stop thinking about the fact that she just wanted to live a long life, reminded her of that. Delight, everything she has to provide for, her health, her family situation, even the movement in the world martial arts worries her. Moreover, there are still those who are responsible for their family's downfall. Therefore, they need to control the situation in Blood Valley. Rion realizes if they don't make a plan, their family might be facing extermination again. Then the girl suggested the maid to come to her grandfather's house. But on the way, the young mistress noticed one child. And then the magic scroll reappeared before her eyes, indicating that the profound enlightenment was now revealed to her. Rion was surprised that she was able to reach the 4th star in the blink of an eye. It was the first time this had happened to her since meeting her grandfather, so she wondered who it could be. The girl decided that it would be great to find out more about this boy. So she asked the maid to wait for her here and rushed over to the boy. Rion was determined not to let him leave, because it was thanks to him that she had the ability that reveals insight at a glance. The girl ran up to the strange boy and grabbed his hand. Rion realized that the Dunmak clan simply needed such abilities. The boy turned around and asked Rion what she needed. Rion was surprised, for when she looked into the strange boy's eyes, she realized that she felt nothing. She looked at the scroll above the strange boy's head, and every column gave a synchronization error. The girl didn't understand why everything was displaying an error. She had a strange feeling like she had seen it somewhere before. So she asked the strange boy to show her face. The child was taken aback and asked the young mistress why she needed to do this. Rion studied the boy's face and noticed that arrow-shaped mole under his eye that was very familiar to her. The girl had a distinct feeling as if they had met in her past life. Suddenly, Rion remembered the adult face of the same boy, realizing that it was the same person. When the protagonist in her past life left Hangzhou to go for treatment, they were attacked by the people from Blood Valley. The girl could barely shift her feet, but she still realized that if she walked a little more, she could reach Zhuge. Rion could feel her heart beating hard, and she felt as if it was about to explode. And then the girl lost consciousness, but thanks to a guy who appeared from nowhere, she didn't manage to face the ground. Rion regained consciousness and told the guy that she was going to give him a norigai. This is a traditional Korean pendant and part of a girl's outfit, and in addition to its decorative function, it can be considered a good luck charm. In return, Rion asked a strange man to take her to the Jugi family behind the mountain. One of the men said that this insolent girl didn't even dare to talk like that and was going to hit her. After that, the main man told the girl to look for other escorts, for they had a long way to go. The man turned around and was about to leave, but Rion wouldn't stop begging him. Rion was already exhausted. In the end, the men just left her and walked away, even though she begged them not to leave. Later, someone from the Zhuge family found her, but she barely survived the ordeal. It was only later that she learned that this person was the head of the Mashan Chin Hua Ryun temple. The girl was brought out of her musings by the voice of Jin Hua Ryun, who asked her why she had called him. Rion continued to look at the boy and was surprised that he was a child in their home. And the girl speculated that it might have been before he joined the Mashon temple. Hua Ryung admitted that he attends another temple. Rion thought that there was something wrong with him, since it was like he was saying random phrases, out of which he suddenly spoke of visiting a temple. Rion came to her senses and tried to convey to the boy that she was not trying to convert him. The girl remembered that he could indeed create a great cult in the future. Jin Hua Ryung, the leader of the Machon temple, he had taken over as the leader of a small cult before reaching his majority, working tirelessly as the head of the Machon temple and as a religious leader. A man who had reached the heights of martial arts through an impressive number of victories. Therefore, the girl understood that when such a man appeared in her home, she should hold on to him tightly, whereupon she asked the boy what his name was. But he was in no hurry to answer, and in response asked the girl what her name was. Rion was shocked at how mean he was, and mentally thought that it would have been easier if he had just said his name and not started an argument. Still, the girl introduced herself and asked what his name was. The boy calmly admitted that his name was Hua Ryung. Rion wondered how old Hua Ryun was, after which she confessed that she was 8. Hua Ryun hesitated and said that he seemed to be 6 years old. Rion looked at the scroll above the boy's head again, and it was still giving the same synchronization error. The girl realized that since the information was incomplete, she wouldn't be able to see it. Rion assumed that his qualities were so amazing that they were inaccessible to her. She couldn't believe that he was even stronger than her grandfather. Rion thought about the fact that despite his age, he's still the same Jinhua Ryung, and she's sure he might not grow up to be such a terrible person. Rion realized that, first of all, most importantly, she needed to make friends with him. So the girl held out a moon gingerbread to Hua Ryun and told him that she got it as a reward for having a good appetite today, but she decided to give it to him. Rion looked closely and noticed that Hua Ryun's hands were dirty, so she asked him to open his mouth. The boy obediently took a bite, and Rion confessed that they were delicious and she really liked them. In response, Hua Ryun said that it tasted more or less the same. The girl got angry and hit him on the head for speaking disrespectfully to the elders. Rion realized that even though he was the future leader of the Meshon temple, but right now he hadn't grown to it yet, because he had just fallen in the girl's eyes. Hua Ryun was shocked at this outcome, and the girl assumed that she had hit him pretty hard, though she didn't think she had used too much force. Afterward, she asked if it hurt a lot, to which Hua Ryun replied that it didn't really hurt. Rion was angry that he was being disrespectful again, so she hit him one more time. As a result, there were already 2 bumps on Hua Ryun's head. Rion explained to the boy that he should treat her with respect. In response, Hua Ryun laughed and said it was pretty funny. Rion was already starting to worry that she had hit him so hard that he had gone insane. The boy couldn't stop laughing, so Rion asked if he was okay and if he had a headache. At that time, a nanny showed up nearby and called out to the lady, saying that it was going to rain and so she needed to go inside. Hua Ryung informed her that it was time for him to go as well. Rion was surprised that the boy was leaving so quickly, as the nanny suddenly appeared out of nowhere and covered the young mistress with an umbrella. The girl snatched the umbrella out of the babysitter's hands and held it out to Hua Ryung. Rion told the boy that she feeds the chickens here every morning and wondered if he would come here at the same time next time. The girl also thought that she would wait for him here. Hua Ryung only nodded his head in agreement. The boy then opened his umbrella and went on his way. Rion watched him until the nanny called out to her and covered her with the umbrella. The nanny noticed that the mistress seemed to like the boy very much, for she even worried that he would not get wet in the rain. Rion asked the nanny that if she suddenly met this boy again, let her be nice to him. Still, Rion thought that he was not a bad person. So she decided that perhaps she could give him another life. Rion was prepared for the fact that she must still have a lot to do in this life. Later, she was talking to her grandfather, and he decided to ask again if his granddaughter definitely wanted to learn martial arts, to which Rion gave an affirmative answer. The grandfather asked his granddaughter if she thought he would change his mind just because she came every day. Rion tried to explain to her grandfather that she just wanted to see him and also have tea. Rion decided to take the initiative and make it for her grandfather herself. In response, the man told his granddaughter to do as she knew how. Rion began to make the tea with her little hands. The grandfather watched his granddaughter and thought about the fact that she had only recently woken up, and he thought that she couldn't hold a toy in her hands without trembling. But she was very skillful at pouring tea. Grandfather suggested that perhaps that was how the blessing worked, but still decided to dismiss the thought. Rion brewed the tea and held out one cup to grandfather. The man gratefully accepted and took a sip. What was his surprise when this tea turned out to be very tasty? He was shocked, for it was the same leaves that were brewed yesterday, but it felt like he was drinking a completely different tea. Rion asked his grandfather how the tea tasted to him. He replied that his granddaughter was pretty good at it, and in that she resembled her father so much. The grandfather suggested that his granddaughter forget about the sticky rice cakes and focus on the martial arts question. Rion got upset and wondered to her grandfather if they were really that terrible. A couple of days ago, the gentleman was informed that his granddaughter, Rion, had come to visit him. He asked her to come in. Rion was all dirty and asked her grandfather if he had slept well. Rion told him that she wanted to give him a very nice treat, so she tried to make rice cakes. Afterwards, she held out a plate of not-so-successful rice cakes and asked her grandfather if he wanted to try some. Rion was all glowing with happiness and told Grandpa that she had worked very hard to make them, and they were also very healthy. Grandpa was already drenched in 7 sweats, but he still took one pie and tried it. Despite the fact that the pies tasted terrible, he did not tell his granddaughter about it, but praised her. The grandfather thought about the fact that when the little girl would get married, he would find the best cooks to prepare a festive dinner. Rion was upset, thinking about how the rice cakes were really awful. The grandfather had confessed to his granddaughter that the red bean filling was too sweet and the cakes themselves were almost impossible to chew, and there was a strange, refreshing energy in his mouth after he ate them. Rion realized that she must have taken on too much, and so she decided to turn the topic towards tea. Grandfather reminded her that he had already said it was quite good. Rion was pleased and decided that she would brew it more often now. Grandpa decided that since his granddaughter had done so well, she deserved a reward. Rion was a little surprised and wondered what she would get in return. Grandpa replied to his granddaughter that if she wanted something, she should just tell him about it. The grandfather suggested that perhaps the granddaughter might want to ask for the boy she had begun to spend a lot of time with. He was the kid who followed the merchants around, carrying their loads and running errands. Since there was nowhere in particular to go, his grandfather thought it would be a good idea to give him an opportunity by having him accompany his granddaughter. Rion said she really wanted to learn martial arts. The grandfather asked his granddaughter if she really wanted it that badly, to which the girl gave an affirmative answer. The grandfather agreed, but warned that then there was one thing she had to do first. Rion became very curious as to what it was. In the end, the girl didn't even expect her grandfather to tell her to learn literacy before taking up martial arts. Rion was surprised when she heard that because she didn't understand the connection between being able to read and write and martial arts. But grandfather didn't understand. Where was it seen that the future heiress was ignorant? Rion wrote hieroglyphics in the sand and thought about the fact that she herself realized that she could not say that she already knew all the letters and that she already knew how to read and write. The girl realized that if it continued like this, it would take a very long time to elevate their house. Suddenly, Hua Ryung came up to Rion and said that the rooster was acting strange. Rion replied that he wasn't weird at all, but rather wonderful. Hua Ryun asked Madame if he was the only one with such an unusual coloring. Rion found it interesting that no matter how many times she watched him, he looked better and better each time. The girl decided it was the right decision to show him more attention. Rion suggested that she should try to get to know him better and welcome him into the family. Hua Ryung studied the rooster closely and noticed that he looked like Phoenix and also had very shiny feathers. Rion noticed that the boy always speaks with such respect. Rion told him that this rooster's name was Hikwal, and she just takes good care of him. Rion started to recall that it seems like the rooster was smaller to begin with. Hua Ryung wondered what she was feeding him. Rion replied that it was all about love and care. Rion didn't realize what kind of child he was, that all he did was nag at her. She then handed him a rice cake and was glad that he finally stopped sticking out. Rion asked the boy how he was doing and hoped she was doing great. Rion asked Hua Ryun if he already knew the alphabet. In response, The boy also asked the mistress if she already knew too. Rion suggested that Hua Ryun study it with her, since she didn't know any of the letters yet. The boy wondered why she didn't know them. Rion thought about the fact that she couldn't just tell him that she wanted to be friends with him, so the girl informed him that her uncle would be teaching her and he should join in, because he said it would be very helpful. Hua Ryung didn't understand what good it would do him, and besides, he didn't know at all where he would use the letters once he learned them. Rion explained to the boy that when he grew up, he would be able to read martial arts books. But Hua Ryung admitted that he wasn't going to learn martial arts. This was a real shock to Rion, and she wondered why. Hua Ryung confessed that in this family, it doesn't matter how good he is, because he will always remain just a shadow of lady and master. It dawned on Rion, and she realized why Ryun from her past life ended up in Mashon. It was because the strongest student there could become a leader. However, the girl firmly understood that he was not allowed to go there. Rion asked Hua Ryun if he liked the Hwasan clan of Sosong Island Castle. After all, they value people for their talents. Hua Ryun replied that Sosong Castle is very far away from here. Rion got angry after all. She's worried about his future. Besides, the main building of Mashon Temple is 16 kilometers away from here. Rion was very curious how he was going to get there. So the girl asked Hua Ryung where he would like to study martial arts. Hua Ryung replied that he wasn't going to study them, and if he started studying martial arts, the only way to become great was to die, and he wanted to live a long life. From this answer, Rion was completely knocked out. The girl was very upset about not convincing him at all. Rion didn't understand what was wrong with him, and if he was really like this as a child. Hua Ryung asked the young mistress to stop acting like that. Rion asked the boy if he would like to be able to defend himself if the Blood Valley assassins attacked, because he could even become one of the great martial artists. Hua Ryun explained to the young mistress that if she was attacked by the Blood Valley assassins, a bunch of cool martial artists would save her, but not him. Rion added that if he knew the letters, he could write a letter. Hua Ryun didn't see the point of that, since writing a letter requires paper. Rion didn't give up and said that if he knew the letters, then he could make money for paper. Hua Ryung couldn't stand it and directly asked the girl why she was trying so hard to convince him to study. Rion realized that it's because she knows he's going to go to Machon Temple and she doesn't want to let that happen. It's the kind of place where only the strongest can become a leader. They take children his age and train them, teaching them to absorb the lives and inner energy of others. It's a horrible and cruel place. Rion, when she imagines that Hua Ryung would go to a place where she would learn such horrible martial arts, she wants to do anything to prevent it. Rion thought about how, if he would at least learn to write with her, he would be accepted into the family, and then he wouldn't be sent away from her. But the girl replied that she just didn't want to study alone. Hua Ryung heard the young mistress's reply and said that he would study with her. Rion got excited and asked the boy if he really wasn't kidding. The girl was happy that they would be studying together. Rion never thought things would go this way in this life. Rion walked into the room and was shocked when she saw Hua Ryung standing next to her mom. The mother explained to her daughter that she had invited him to join them since he was the same age as Bia, so she thought it would be nice if they studied together. The woman turned to the boy and asked again what his name was. Hua Ryung introduced himself, and in response, the mother said that he had a very pretty name. Rion watched this picture and was completely shocked. The boy promised the madam that he would do his best. The Matushka said that she hoped the two of them would get along. Rion was shocked, for she hadn't even had a chance to say a word yet, and it had already turned out like this. A boy ran up to the mother and promised that he would try his best too. The mother explained to Bia that he should call Rion his sister. Bia was overjoyed and hugged his little sister. Rion hugged the boy back and realized that it had been a very long time since she had seen her brother. While Rion was sick, her little brother was always by her side. He would sit by his sister's bed and beg for her to stay with him. Bia didn't know at all what would happen to him if she left him. Rion looked at her younger brother and realized that even though he was born later, he had impressive abilities. Rion hoped that this time they could live a very long and happy life together. Rion thought about asking Ryun to address her by her first name. So the girl turned to the boy and said that he could just call her by her first name. The mother supported her daughter's idea and said that it would be much better that way, since they should get along. Hwa Ryung agreed and addressed the girl, calling her by her first name, Rayon. The lesson began, and the teacher asked the children to try to write the words. The man's name was Dunmak Hyunu, and he was Dunmak Rywan's uncle. Rayon was wondering how Hwa Ryun was doing, because she was worried because she was the one who told him to study with her. In the end, the teacher looked at the worksheet and said that they all did great. He also said that among the swords, the most famous sword is the Gomul sword, and among the beads, the most valuable beads are the glowing beads. In character, Danmak Hyunu was sentimental and outmatched, as well as reliable and a joker. Hyunu asked Bia if he knew what a glowing bead was, but the boy gave a negative answer and revealed that he had never heard of it before. Hyunu assured that there was nothing wrong with it and promised to tell the children everything. Rayon thought about the fact that this would put something of her uncle's talents to the test, for he gathers the neighbors here and teaches the children to write. The girl realized that it must be all about her, for her uncle was worried about her because of the incident that had happened then. A deep darkness had taken root in his heart. 7 years ago, when Rayon was just born, they were attacked by the Blood Valley. Back then, instead of her father, her mother and her were protected by her uncle. Thanks to him, they were able to save their lives. But an unfortunate thing happened. From that day on, she became an empty shell. The uncle barked and blamed himself because he couldn't protect them the way Rayon's father could. Eventually, the uncle was completely consumed by guilt. He advised the children that in order to better memorize the symbols they had learned, they should use them as often as possible. So he suggested that, starting this day, they write letters to each other. Uncle suggested that today should be the end of the day. Rayon suggested that since she was done with her lessons for the day, she wanted to have tea together. The girl poured the tea and thought about adding some of her energy to the drink. The girl hoped they would drink it and grow big and healthy. Uncle reminded the boys not to forget to thank their sister, for she had personally brewed them this delicious tea, after which each of them took a sip. Uncle shared that he felt that the people of Hangzhou were willing to give a fortune for a cup of this wonderful tea. Rayon was pleasantly surprised that Uncle was very considerate. Bia also agreed that the tea is incredibly delicious and it has a very refreshing flavor. Bia asked his little sister how she got it to taste so good. Rayon thought to herself as she enjoyed watching their reactions, and she would be happy if Hwa Ryung liked the tea too. The girl glanced at her new friend and met his gaze. Rayon was slightly taken aback and thought about the fact that he didn't find the tea tasty. But Hwa Ryung smiled in response, and the girl didn't understand that side of the smirk, as if he knew everything. The uncle turned to his niece and told her that her sincere feelings were conveyed even through the tea. He warned the girl that if she studied with the best master and her ambition was firm, she could achieve incredible results. Bia turned to her little sister and asked her if she was learning martial arts from her grandfather. Uncle turned to his nephew and told him that if he could learn to write and read, he could too. Bia rejoiced at the thought that he too could learn martial arts. Uncle turned to the children and said that if they all learned literacy, there would be a reward waiting for them. Rayon rejoiced at the wonderful day, but was dying for the incredible heat outside. The girl realized that she might collapse before she dealt with Blood Valley. Rayon thought about the fact that in about 10 years, the assassins from Blood Valley would be stronger, and in order for her to prepare for the encounter, she needed to learn as much as she could about them. So under the guise of reading class, she took all the books related to them off the shelf. But the more she read, the more her anxiety grew. The girl had read in a book that the Blood Valley's bloody technique was characterized by claw-like wounds. It was destructive and cruel, and no one had ever been able to unravel their method of mind control. Rayon knew that a martial artist needed a long time to become stronger, and no matter how powerful the elixir and spiritual practices were, they needed time. However, Blood Valley masters are different. They seem to have managed to reduce this period to a couple years, and many of them possess a huge amount of internal energy. With such spiritual energy, it is extremely difficult for them to resist. Rayon wondered if it was possible to find such a spiritual practice to accumulate internal energy so quickly, but at the same time, the girl realized that if one were to increase spiritual energy so quickly, one would simply go insane. and that madness could only be laid down from the pith of human blood. Rion had read that those who were able to master the blood art had a high survival rate. The girl wondered if they could survive even if they were stabbed through the heart. In addition, it was learned that the leaders of Blood Valley possessed secret Muram techniques. Rion was tired of absorbing so much information and decided she needed a break. And besides, it was too hot to think. Rion decided to deal with the problems of the day first and then think about the Blood Valley. Suddenly, Hua Ryun entered the room and noticed Rion lying there. The boy looked around and said that just as he thought, she had the best room. The girl explained that it was all because of the position of the girls in the house. Rion warned that if he waited until winter came, then he would see how full of energy they would be. Hua Ryun glanced at the book next to the girl, wondering what she was studying so intently. Hua Ryun noticed that these books were about the Blood Valley and asked the girl why she needed them. Rion immediately perked up and started putting the books away, explaining that she needed them for nothing. Furthermore, Rion wondered how Hua Ryun knew about Blood Valley. Rion asked Hua Ryun if he had ever met the people from Blood Valley. Hua Ryun answered in the affirmative and said that he knew about the blood cult. The boy also added that although he has never met them, he knows that they drink human blood. Hua Ryun looked at the girl suspiciously and asked her why she was even reading about them. Rion had to say that it was just that her house was one of the pillars of the Muram Union, and as the eldest heiress, she should know the history. It was unclear to Rion why her friend was reacting this way, and she hoped he wasn't very familiar with them. Hua Ryung decided to change the subject and explained that he stopped by because he wanted to give her something, namely ice. Rion got excited and asked her friend where he was able to get it. Hua Ryung confessed that they gave it to him as a reward for a job well done. Rion asked her friend how and who he had helped. Hua Ryung said that Mrs. Zhou from the fabric store had bought ice because her child had gotten sick. Her son had the same symptoms as the child he met in the slum. Then, a Taoist monk said to just go to the mountains to get a single plant and give it to the boy. Hua Ryun brought the plant to Mrs. Zhou and asked for ice as a thank you. Rion looked at the boy's hands and noticed that they were all scratched. Hua Ryung asked Rion if he shouldn't have brought her the ice. The girl began to recoil, explaining that it was very chilly with him. Rion turned to her friend and asked if he wasn't really going to study martial arts. Hua Ryung reminded him that he still hadn't even learned the letters yet. Rion asked him not to lie, since she already realized that he had already learned everything. Rion decided to look into it from the other side, and she wondered why he thought that. Rion speculated that maybe if he didn't study martial arts, it would have led to a better outcome, and he wouldn't be so bad in the future. Hua Ryun asked his girlfriend why she wanted to study martial arts, and whether she wanted to become a great master. Hua Ryung told Rion that all she would have to do is to become the strongest among those who master martial arts. In response, the girl said that you can't have everything you want. Hua Ryung then asked her friend if she still wanted to become the greatest master in the world, to which the girl answered in the negative and said that she didn't want to become one at all. Hua Ryun thought about the fact that apparently, if one doesn't become the greatest master, then there's no point at all. Rion couldn't help but agree that it's good to try and get stronger, but it's not necessarily becoming the greatest master at all. Rion explained that she just wants to live a long and happy life with everyone she cares about. Hua Ryung asked her friend what she would do if someone wanted to take away everything she had. Rion explained that that was why she had to become strong enough to protect her loved ones. Hua Ryung then said that the greatest master could try to take everything away from her. Rion replied that in that case, she would ask her friends for help. Hua Ryung reminded Rion that she didn't have any friends. Rion consoled herself that they would appear in the future. Besides, Rion considered Hua Ryun her friend. The boy said that he didn't know how to fight at all, but that wasn't that important to Rion. Suddenly, the girl stroked Hua Ryun's head, thus surprising him a lot. Rion told her friend that if he would at least just be there for her, it would give her strength. Hua Ryun said nothing in response and just looked at Rion. The girl wondered why he looked at her like that. But Hua Ryun didn't bother to answer. Rion peeked into the room late in the evening to make sure no one was there. Just as suddenly, a man appeared out of nowhere and approached Madame, saying that she might be sick. The man asked the young mistress where she was going in the middle of the night. Ryeon admitted that she just wanted to go to the library. The man was surprised to hear that the mistress wanted to go to the library at such a late hour. Ryeon noticed a scroll containing information about Jongyeon, who she had just met. Ryeon agreed and asked the man to escort her to the library. Jongyeon agreed to help the little missus. On the way, Ryeon noticed that he seemed to be practicing his walking technique. The girl also realized that he was devotedly protecting and caring for her. Ryeon wondered if there was anything she could do to help him with her abilities, namely 4th level depth insight, which allowed her to see the faults of others, and 4th level harmony, namely the ability to correct faults. The girl decided that if she could use both abilities at once, she would be able to see his flaws and help correct them. Ryeon directly asked Jongyeon if he was practicing his walking technique right now. The man was very surprised and didn't even realize it was so obvious. The man also explained that unfortunately, he's not doing much so far. Ryeon assured Jongyeon that it's okay, and said that the walking technique not only helps you get away from the enemy, but it's also a great trick to step back and then go forward again. Ryeon advised her to shift her weight to the back of her left leg that is retreating and visualized how to do it. Jongyeon was completely shocked to see that the young mistress was so smart. He thanked her for what she showed him and also said that he would never forget her kindness. Ryeon felt awkward about him thanking her like that. Just as they were about to enter the library, another man looked out from there and was surprised to see the lady. Jongyeon explained that the little missus just wanted to check something out. The man let the young mistress pass and said that he felt really bad about the place being such a mess. Ryeon assured that everything was fine, she just wanted to check something out. The girl was well aware that the whole house was a mess, so she thought it was important to see how serious it was. Ryeon thought about the fact that the aunt who was now considered the head of the family wanted to join forces of the Murim Union, both the status and the strength of the family with outside support, but counting on outside help was possible up to a certain point. Ryeon wanted to see for herself the reality of their family's situation. Bia was worried that his little sister was sick, but Hwa Ryung assured the boy that it was something else. Bia wondered why his little sister was making those noises then. Bia thought he should pick cherry blossoms for her, and then it would be better for her to see the flowers. But Hwa Ryung replied that he didn't think flowers would help here. Bia asked Hwa Ryung what they should do then. Hwa Ryung said that Ryeon will be happy if he learns literacy and learns martial arts, and if he becomes a great master, she will even dance with happiness. Bia asked Hwa Ryung if he could become a great master too then, to which the boy answered in the affirmative and headed off somewhere. Ryeon at this time was tearfully not realizing why she had to go through all of this. If things are really like this, then very soon their family will collapse. The girl did not understand what was happening at all, and because of these thoughts, she could not sleep. Ryeon didn't even realize that her family was in such a dismal state. The number of stores their family owned had greatly decreased, and the amount of land they owned had also drastically decreased in the past 20 years. They can only accept one disciple every 3 years because there is no way to accept many new disciples. And even those apprentices who train hard end up leaving the clan. Ryeon speculated that maybe that's why Jongyeon is guarding her even though he's one of the best warriors. Ryeon realized that money could help her solve all these problems. The girl realized that she had power, and her younger brother was also quite talented, and she thought it would be easy to revive their family. But given her current situation, she wasn't sure if she would be able to live to adulthood. Ryeon realized that if things continued like this, her future would be the same as her past life. So the girl was determined that she needed to make money somehow, and preferably a lot of it. The uncle asked his niece why she dressed so lightly, because she might get sick. Besides, the sun had just risen, and he didn't understand why she had come here so early. Ryeon explained that she had already learned everything. Her uncle took his niece in his arms and explained that she could be here by the time classes started. Ryeon explained that she wanted to get the reward that her uncle had promised her as soon as possible. He listened to his niece and suggested that she go inside first so she wouldn't catch a cold. The uncle decided that a promise was a promise, so he decided to see if she remembered everything first. The uncle thought to himself that, yes, given that his niece Ryeon was capable, it was impossible that she would learn everything so quickly. So he warned the girl that if she made a mistake, the mistake should be corrected and then memorize the correct version. Rian said not to reason about the difficulty, take a different path, and never blindly rely on someone else's strength. The uncle was amazed at how his niece memorized everything quickly, and he thought that was just great. He then asked the girl what she wanted in return and promised to do anything for her. Rian confessed that she wanted to go to the pharmacy. The city of Hangzhou is located in Zhejiang province. It is one of the richest cities in the country, and if you know what to do, you can make good money here. Rian tormented herself with thoughts of there being a lot of competition here, and she racked her brains and thought for a long time, and finally came up with something. The girl decided to use her power to create a healing salve. It would be very popular, as it would be the first medicine that was created by a Murim family. Rian thought that if she put some of her spiritual energy into this ointment, it would be even better. But there was a problem, because with such low-quality ingredients, the cost of the medicine would also be accordingly. Rian looked at the products and realized that they were all of medium or low quality. After that, she turned to her uncle and asked if the herbs were sold anywhere else. Her uncle told her niece that they source herbs from different regions. Rian admitted that these herbs here, specifically the quality of them, made her a little discouraged. The uncle understood and suggested that the niece visit another pharmacy. Suddenly, the girl glanced at the topmost shelf and noticed a white jar there. The uncle asked his niece if she wanted him to get it because it held essential oil. The man told her that the oil is extracted from the leaves, roots, and seeds of trees. For example, this oil is squeezed from the lavender flower, and it has a pleasant aroma. The uncle pulled out and gave his niece a sniff of the essential oil. Rian hit her nose with the soothing and pleasant scent of herbs and flowers. Then a scroll appeared in front of the girl, saying that combining known ingredients would produce ingredients with better efficiency, and so using this skill absorbed spiritual energy. Rian realized that if one used the first level, the result would help one achieve harmony, and using the second level would help one find balance. And it was not just a feeling of harmony throughout the body, but more than that. Rian turned to her uncle and asked if he could get the essential oil from that shelf still. The uncle inquired of his niece what she was trying to do. Rian pondered that peppermint and lavender oils were considered high-quality products. Therefore, if one mixes the two components well, one could create an item that would purify spiritual energy. Rian, her spiritual energy runs out, and Harmony Essential Oil, if used for headaches, the pain will be soothed. And if used for drowsiness, it will immediately feel invigorating. The effect is noticeable with any use, and it also helps with arthritis and joint stiffness. Rian decided to start checking its effectiveness. The girl couldn't get excited, realizing that she could make a lot of money with this oil alone. The uncle looked at his niece. The girl began to ponder how she would explain all of this to her uncle. Rian decided that she wouldn't go into an explanation because she didn't want rumors to spread. So she lied to her uncle that she had dreamed that she was flying in the clouds and met different deities, and they told her what to do. Rian also lied that she had heard that her uncle was suffering from headaches. Rian added that she had been told that if she applied this ointment, the headache would go away too. Uncle began to refuse, and Rian, making a sweet face, said that she wanted to do something for Uncle because she could not see him suffering. Uncle took his niece's ointment and began to apply it. He realized that his head immediately felt like it was suddenly feeling better. After a couple of seconds, the man realized that the headache was completely gone. Rian couldn't be pleased. The girl decided that since Uncle Hyunu had confirmed that the ointment was working, she should make some for her grandfather. Suddenly, the uncle asked his niece if she was in pain when she was with the deities. He was also worried about her not being cold or being hurt by anyone. Rian said that she wasn't hurt at all and was even having fun. The uncle thanked his niece for making this ointment for him. A sign appeared in front of the girl, saying that Danmok Hyunu's anxiety had receded. Rian hoped that her uncle wouldn't worry so much about her anymore. Later, Grandpa was absolutely thrilled when he found out that his granddaughter had prepared the salve herself. Uncle Hyunu bragged about it to Grandpa. He also said that she had prepared the ointment by mixing different essential oils, and he named it Blue Lotus. Hyunu told his father that the ointment was wonderful for high blood pressure if rubbed on his neck. Grandfather decided that was enough and he could handle it himself. Hyunu laughed and simply said he wanted to help. Grandpa looked at his son and thought about how he looked more cheerful now that his granddaughter was awake. But he always said that it wasn't Hyunwoo's fault for that accident, and he had spent too long berating himself for it. Hyunwoo decided to get a relaxing massage. Hyunwoo used the ointment and asked his grandfather if he felt a surge of energy. Uncle told him that their Rion is very smart, and she was able to prepare this healing remedy. She was also talented in various fields, and even managed to memorize a whole 1,000 hieroglyphics, which was very astonishing. That was why he decided to study herbalism with Rion. Grandpa said that the leader of the sloths, who had been bowing down for so long for nothing, seemed determined to learn something new. Grandfather asked his son if he could teach her something, and how to know if they might learn something new together. Hyunwoo suggested that his father think about teaching Rion himself as well. Hyunwoo asked his father about the idea of sending a blue lotus as a gift to all of his allies. Hyunwoo thought it would be great to send a gift to the leaders of the volcanic faction and the four brothers, as well as the head of the Manson merchants. Grandfather hesitated and said first of all no gifts to the four brothers yet. Hyunwoo was surprised and wondered why. The grandfather explained that if they sent a gift right after the granddaughter woke up, they might see it as a sign to renew previous arrangements. Hyunwoo realized that his father was right, and they really might think that. Dokseong Dongyu-byuk and Dongmuk Cheongi had been friends for a long time, so they wanted to intermarry by marrying their children. They were to marry Donmuk Rayon, Danmuk Cheongi's newborn granddaughter, and Tan Yasol, Dokseong Dongyu-byuk's 4-year-old second grandchild. However, their plans were not destined to come to fruition, as even 100 days after her birth, Rion was still extremely weak. At the same time, Tan Yasol was growing up and showing incredible talents. In the end, the hope for this marriage finally collapsed. Even though Dokseong Dongyu-byuk had secretly helped with medicine for Rayon, there was nothing tying them together now. Grandfather said that if his granddaughter was okay with it, he'd better send a gift to the head of the Manseong merchants. Hyunwoo agreed and said he would get everything ready. Hyunwoo asked his father if that meant that he would now be teaching Rayon martial arts. Hyunwoo said that seeing how quickly she was able to learn literacy, he was sure that she would also quickly master the art of sword-wielding. And maybe in a couple of years they could fight, and then they would find out who she was more like. The grandfather told his son to be on his way. Hyunwoo went out, and overjoyed started calling for his niece to practice with his uncle. Suddenly, a maid came running in and said that there was trouble, for the young mistress had fainted. Rion came to her senses and noticed her crying mother sitting beside her. The doctor assured the woman that she would be better now, and if she paid more attention to her health, she would soon get better. Rion thought about the fact that she had passed out because she had been spending too much energy on creating the Blue Lotus lately. She needed to use it gradually and not let it drop below the 10-unit level. The girl realized that she seemed to be overdoing it a bit. The doctor said that for her awakening, she should thank this boy who was able to get the jade herb at such a time. Rion was surprised when she heard about the jade herb. The doctor told her that jade grass had a special feature. It could restore energy, so it was perfect in cases like this. It was a rare kind of grass that usually grew in the spring, and it was very difficult to find it for sure. Mother supported the conversation and said that Hua Ryun was able to find it, for which she was incredibly grateful to him. The doctor said that he was now sick himself, since he had gone to the mountains on a cold fall day. Now that the little mistress was awake, he could pay more attention to him. Mother thanked the doctor and told him to head off to the next patient. Rion tried to stand up as she decided that she should look after him as well. Matushka asked her daughter if she was all right, but all the girl's thoughts were only occupied with the fact that she had to go. She assured her mother that she was fine and she could get up. At this time, the maids were discussing among themselves that the young mistress had finally come to her senses. They were very glad, for they were afraid that she would never wake up again. The maids were also aware that the healer was now concentrating on treating the boy who had found the jade herb. Hua Ryun heard these conversations, and he was relieved to know that Madame had come to her senses. He exhaled, realizing that meant things would get better now. Then he covered his eyes and started to fall asleep. But he didn't succeed, as Rayon came up to him. He had done something really stupid. Rayon asked Hua Ryung to rest, and then the girl herself started to give her friend medicine. Rion asked where the brave man who had been searching the mountains so diligently for herbs had gone. Hua Ryung realized that if he had known in advance, he would have kept some to spare. He asked the girl to imagine how much effort it took to find grass that no one else could find. Hua Ryun looked at the girl and wondered what was wrong with her face. He felt like he had said something wrong and thought about the fact that he seemed to have brought up a sore subject. Hua Ryun woke up, and it felt like he had just covered his eyes for a moment and immediately fell into a dream. He noticed that Ryeon had already left, thinking that of course she had gone back to her room. Hua Ryun wondered why he felt like something was missing. Some moment, the young mistress entered the room, seeing that her friend was awake. Ryeon asked Hua Ryun if he was thirsty, as she brought him some water. Hua Ryun asked his friend why she was still here. Ryeon replied that since he was sick, she should take care of him. Hua Ryun was surprised when he heard that. Ryeon decided that if she didn't take care, no one would take care of him. So she brought him some goodies and asked him to eat and go to bed. Hua Ryun refused, deciding that he would rather sleep. The girl was surprised because she realized that he must be hungry. Ryeon asked her friend to eat, but Hua Ryun had already turned away and covered himself with a blanket with his head. But then he got bored and asked the girl to stop and agreed to eat. Ryeon realized that he still wasn't feeling well, so skipping a meal shouldn't be skipped. Hua Ryun said that she herself wasn't fully recovered yet, to which the girl replied that she was fine. The next day, Ryeon felt like the black rooster had gotten even bigger since last time. The rooster came over and began to circle around his mistress. The girl thought he was worried about her being sick too. Ryeon looked over the bird and noticed that he seemed to have changed a lot. Hua Ryun came up behind her and said that it felt like it had become even more like a phoenix or even a red falcon. The boy realized that now he didn't seem like an ordinary rooster to her anymore. Ryeon wondered if it was possible to become a spirit by absorbing spiritual energy. Hua Ryung explained to his granddaughter that if the rooster grew to be a winnowing rooster, the spirit could take over Ryeon. It would take her away and imprison her in a dungeon. She and would only breed phoenixes. Ryeon looked at her friend and realized that even the future leader of Mashan Temple was afraid of spirits when you were young. However, since her family needed to be revived, she hoped that she would become stronger very soon and be able to help. Ryeon suggested that it would be worth it to separate the rooster from the rest of the hens. The maid later told her mistress that while they were building a new coop for the birds, they had to separate them, and the black rooster ended up escaping. Ryeon asked the maid if she had seen where he had gone. The woman pointed her finger toward the fence and said he ran that way. Ryeon walked over and saw him jump over the fence and thought he was a little rascal. Hua Ryung joined Ryeon and asked if it was the rooster that escaped. The girl gave an affirmative answer and said that she should have done a better job of picking him up. Ryeon was worried that the rooster had escaped into the mountains and that wild animals might eat it there. Hua Ryung assured his girlfriend that the rooster was small enough to be so easy to catch. Ryeon explained that it wasn't just the wild animals that were the problem, because she was also worried that other people would want to steal it. Hua Ryung replied that it was only those who wanted to sign their own judgment who would dare to steal a rooster that belonged to the clan. Ryeon explained that it didn't have to be so cruel at all, and she sometimes felt like Hua Ryung said such frightening things without even thinking. The girl assumed that it was the future leader of the Machan Temple talking about him. Hua Ryun brought the girl out of her musings and asked her if she was going to go looking for that rooster. Ryeon gave an affirmative answer and said that perhaps he was wandering somewhere alone and couldn't find his way home. So Ryeon ended up being with Hua Ryung, who couldn't leave her alone in her search, as well as the guard Jongyeon, who immediately came running when he heard that his still not fully recovered mistress was going to go to the mountains. That's how the Black Feathered Rooster Rescue Squad was formed. Ryeon tried to walk with all her might, but she realized that she was about to die. For in the mountains, where spiritual energy hangs in the air, she could not breathe. Hua Ryung turned to the girl and offered to go back, but she didn't want to. They still hadn't found the black rooster. Jongyeon promised his mistress that he would do his best to find it, but for now, he offers to go back. Suddenly, the girl noticed the red feathers and rushed to her rooster. The girl asked the rooster how he managed to get here and if it was hard for him, and then offered to go back home. But the rooster took off, and then the girl realized that he seemed to be saying goodbye to them. Ryeon asked her pet if he really had to go, whereupon the bird flew up into the air. The children watched as if mesmerized as the rooster turned into a phoenix. Ryeon was upset that he had left, but Hua Ryung began to comfort her by saying that at least he had said goodbye, and it was a strange rooster after all. Ryeon asked her friend if others would believe that the rooster turned into a phoenix and flew away. Hua Ryung advised his friend to be careful, because phoenix or not, it could have been set up by the White Dao League faction or the Dark Heavens. Ryeon replied that it could have been the work of the Mashon Temple as well, but at the same second, she wondered if she should have said anything about the temple at all. Anxiety overcame her in an instant. Hua Ryung explained that it was too far from here, since it was hundreds of kilometers away. The boy asked his friend why they were talking about Machon Temple all of a sudden. Ryeon couldn't help but agree that it was far away. Mentally, the girl hoped that Hua Ryung wouldn't even think of going there. Suddenly, the quill in Ryeon's childish hands began to light up, and then the light went out. Zhongyan asked Madame if she was okay, and if she had burned herself, to which the girl assured that she was fine, and she was fine. Hua Ryung realized that it looks like they got a phoenix with feathers that don't burn. Ryeon still didn't understand how a rooster was able to turn into a phoenix, and noticed that her friend was freaking out again, as if that was the case, though it wasn't that far from the truth. Ryeon knew that animals could indeed become spirits if they accumulated enough spiritual energy, and Ryeon would add her spiritual energy to the chicken's feed, and she thought it would be possible to nurture them and extract their inner core. But it only seemed that way to the girl. Ryeon was a little sad to say goodbye to him like this, because she was able to extract his inner core. The girl was genuinely worried if her rooster would be okay. Hua Ryung assured his girlfriend that he would be like a king everywhere. Ryeon reminded herself that she didn't have time to be sad, so she suggested that she go back home. The girl could feel her spiritual energy building up very quickly, and so she realized that it was impossible to procrastinate. She was angry that she had managed to get this far. Then a scroll appeared in front of the girl again, saying that spiritual energy accumulated faster in living nature. Ryeon took a look and realized that her spiritual energy was already much higher than she thought, so she hurried down rather quickly. On the way, Ryeon heard someone moving in the bushes. Then a lost kitten emerged from the foliage. Ryeon immediately picked it up in her arms. The girl's guard suggested that perhaps it had been abandoned because it was weak. Ryeon wasn't sure that if they left him here, his mom would come back. The guard confirmed that he couldn't survive here alone. Hua Ryun indifferently told the girl to just leave him here, because if they took such a baby, he wouldn't live long. Besides, they had already come all this way for a rooster. Hua Ryung asked Ryeon what she would do if she took him into her care and he didn't survive. The girl didn't understand at all what she should do, since she saw the kitten suffering. Ryeon also realized that it would be hard to part with him later, but right now, they can't leave him here to die. Hua Ryung told the girl to do as she knows and let him meow all he wants because he can't understand it. Ryeon assured her friend that Balash didn't do anything wrong, so she shouldn't treat him like that.